You are on Direct Drive with me, Leah Panapa, and a special guest. Always exciting when someone comes into my lovely studio here at home, and it's Cam Luxton.
Yeah, g'day, Leah. It's nice to be in your beautiful home studio.
It's not bad, eh?
Yeah, it's really nice. It's good of you to have this set up.
Yeah.
And the platform to be broadcasting from all parts of the country.
I tell you, we're omnipresent. Now, sadly, we don't have a camera trained on you yet.
No.
That's to come. The budget didn't quite stretch to another one.
It might look a bit weird if I photobomb behind you.
Yeah, but trust me, Cam was here. And it's funny, Kelly, my producer, when I said, oh, Cam's going to come into the studio, which is great. And she went, oh, nice. I said, oh, now I'm going to have to vacuum and tidy and
it's extremely clean here. You've got a great site manager.
I mean, look, the house is always so, but, special guest coming in and all. Hey, Cam, so let's jump in, my friend. You are the conservation spokesperson for ACT as well. Now, you've introduced a members' bill into the ballot that will give hunters a seat at the table with the Conservation Authority. Now, I must admit I wasn't up to speed with what the Conservation Authority is. Can you tell us who they are and who is on the board?
Yeah, so the Conservation Authority works out the problems and solutions for DOC, the Department of Conservation, and how they manage the DOC estate. So currently the board is made up of 13 members. Members are appointed by ministers. Specifically, there's 2 for the Minister of Local Government, 2 for the Minister of Māori Affairs. There's also appointees that are directly appointed from Ngāi Tahu. Forest and Bird can nominate a seat at the table for one of their representatives. So can the Royal Society. So can a couple of others. But what I wanted to do was say, there's a massive part of New Zealand that isn't being represented here. People who really love the bush, get out into it, go really deep into places that a lot of New Zealanders don't get to, and those are hunters.
Yeah.
And so I thought, look, we need to make some space at the table here, and the best way to do it is to add another couple of seats. So one seat would be provided for the New Zealand Deerstalkers Association. And the Deerstalkers Association have a heck of a lot of members. They do over 180,000 hours a year of conservation work, whether it's repairing tracks and huts or predator control, which is a massive part of it. And then another seat, which would be a shared seat between the Game Animal Council and Fish and Game, who are the statutory bodies that the government has set up to manage the legislation around the way we have our DOC estate run for the benefit of all New Zealanders, but particularly hunters and anglers. And so getting those voices at the table will mean that there's a greater variety of people who can contribute to the way our DOC estate is managed.
Do you think this has just been an oversight and they didn't think about it? Or has this been I don't want to say it, but is it a concerted kind of, they didn't want hunters there? They don't want the Deerstalkers Association there?
Well, the other club that I didn't mention there was the Federated Mounted Clubs also have a seat at the table. And in the past, there was basically people who went out in the bush and enjoyed themselves hiking around, tramping, or going out hunting. It was all sort of together. Well, clubs have broken off. New Zealand population has expanded. People have their own special interests. So groups like the New Zealand Deerstalkers Association, who have been around for a very long time, have become the preeminent body for hunters in New Zealand. And so giving them a seat at the table expands the voice. I don't think there's been a concerted effort to keep hunters out, but hunters are a massive part of what happens in New Zealand's bush. They have a lot of insight that others don't have.
Yeah.
As I say before, getting right off the beaten track into some places, chasing animals and doing things that other people might not get a chance to see, and bringing that knowledge to the table can only benefit everybody.
And you mentioned the conservation part of it, and I want to look a little bit into that because I know with the Deerstalkers Association, I mean, they've done quite a bit of work, as you said, and they've done work with DOC, including last year they set up a competition to cull goats and got over 10,000 of them.
Yeah, and that's working together with interest groups. So hunters getting out there and culling goats. Goats aren't the most attractive species to consume, and so, people can look over them.
We had a pet one. Don't knock all goats.
Well, and I'm sure it was
Although
they've
got those weird, they've got those weird eyes. You know, like the slit. They look like a gin.
They're not a lot of fun when you shine a torch on them in the night.
Yeah. But, and the odd one gets you, headbutts you. But I get it.
Can look a bit creepy, but things like going out and organising communities to go and deal with feral populations who otherwise aren't getting the attention, and supplying a lot of benefit that otherwise the taxpayer would have to pay.
Yeah.
There's a group called the Wapiti Foundation who, they are a group who manage the Wapiti herd in Fiordland National Park, 175,000 hectares under their management. They run a ballot for hunting Wapiti, and they do
What's Wapiti?
Wapiti are in America they're called elk. New Zealand, well, in America they're called Wapiti as well. But
so they're like a deer.
Yeah, it's a really big deer. So they
you're just making up a name there, Wapitis.
No, okay, so Wapiti is a large species of deer, North American elk. It's running around Fiordland. It has been since Teddy Roosevelt gifted the original herd to New Zealand. And so they've been running around. They're great sports. A massive amount of tourism dollar is spent by people coming to New Zealand to hunt these animals. Also Kiwis getting down to Te Anau for that rut, which the elk, the Wapiti do, and getting down there and wanting to chase animals, but getting out in the bush and providing for the local economy, and also funding the groups who do the massive amount of conservation work, whether it's FEOR, keeping our blue duck species healthy, whether it's doing musculate traps and setting poisons, actually and cutting tracks and other things in the bush, all stuff that, as I say before, would have to be paid for by the taxpayer.
No, because they do it. They just do it, don't they?
Well, and do it for the love, because hunters have got a massive passion for the bush. Like we love. I mean, I'm a hunter. I love getting out in the bush. Wish I could do a bit more of it, but politics is what I'm doing.
I was going to say you're suited and booted nowadays.
I am indeed.
You're sitting in Parliament. Yeah,
I am indeed. But when I get out there, you can get into those places where you can have a real a deep experience of the bush when you can get really deep. And it's not a bit. And hunters, people might think we're out there just to try and hunt animals, but actually we're out there for the experience of the bush and the love of nature. Yeah. And the conservation work is just a side part of that. It's something we want to do. You've
said sometimes hunters find themselves at odds with other groups that are lobbying DOC. Have you got an example? Was this with Forest and Bird that didn't like the fact that DOC was working with hunters? What was that?
So it's back to that Wapiti.
That was that one.
Yeah, situation. So the Wapiti Foundation, they've got a herd that's incredibly important to New Zealand, our culture and our economy in the Wapiti that are running around Fiordland. And there's sort of been an arrangement where we have to, by law, remove all introduced species, but from the New Zealand bush. But the problem is there's just not enough funding. There's not enough funding for them to be able to do that. And it's what we've got in Fiordland, as I described before, is with a ballot system and income raising and volunteer hours from hunters, we've got not only the herd being controlled to a manageable, sustainable and productive level, we've also got people down there who are contributing back to the area because they've been drawn there by the Wapiti. They stay for the nature and they get involved and do the volunteer hours to improve it. So again, this is money that the taxpayer would have to spend, but we've found a better way to do it by involving communities and people with a passion for the bush and getting them involved and out there. So the actual dispute was, Forest and Bird wanted to do a review of the law to make sure that was happening in a legal way. Problem was, it's going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars on everyone's side, on DOC's side, Wapiti Foundation, Forest and Bird. This is money that could be better spent on conservation. So they've come to a bit of a cease of hostilities at the moment and working through the ways that work. But, it's maybe if we had a situation where hunters were being heard at the table, these sort of issues wouldn't be developed. So again, that's what this bill is trying to do.